What do you guys want to do? Don't we have a project due tomorrow? Our history project for Mr. Ballman?
No.
Oh my gosh.
Oh no, the one we had for our
gosh!
Our group project that we've been working on for...
Yeah, right.
We should, how much time do we have?
We have 18 hours.
18 hours, okay. You guys want to go throw it together?
Okay.
Yeah, let's go do this.
Tired of those boring 18-disc DVD sets on the Dustbowl?
Well, we got a 20-disc DVD set on the Dustbowl.
Enjoy!
The first disc talks about life before the Dust Bowl, the effects of the Dust Bowl, and the everyday lives of those living in the Dust Bowl.
Hello. I will be discussing with you today life before the Dust Bowl, such as the decade of the 1920s, the 1929 stock market crash, followed by the Great Depression, and then the Dust Bowl, which affected the lives of thousands of farmers across the nation. Now, the 1920s was a very prosperous time, full of happiness, innovation, and full of prosperity. It changed the lives of millions of American families across the nation. Technology was invented, the Model T car was invented, changing the daily lives of commuters. Radios were invented, broadcasted across the nation. News and media were changed forever by this. But this era of prosperity came to a quick end on the date that is known as Black Tuesday, 1929, when the stock market crashed. Unemployment rose to an unprecedented 25%, and the hopes of the American citizens slowly vanished.
Today we'll be discussing the effects on the Dust Bowl. The Dust Bowl, known as the Dirty 30s, which affected 100 million acres of land. There were 14 severe dust storms in 1932, and then by 1933 there were 38. Then, finally in 1937, there was an estimated 134 dust storms called the Black Blizzards. There was an estimated 6,000 tons of dust that was dumped over Chicago. Now, during the dust storms, the static electricity was so bad that it would short out cars, leaving people stranded in these dust storms. People living in the region of the dust storms of the Dust Bowl, mainly parts of Arkansas and Oklahoma, were known as the Arkies and Okies. Now, the Okies and Arkies were forced to move to California, but sadly, their hardships continued.
Plagued by dust storms and evictions, thousands of farmers and sharecroppers left their land behind. They packed up the few possessions that they owned and their families and headed down Route 66 for California.
Some migrants known as Okies and Arkies, a derogatory term to generalize all migrants, found work as farmhands, while others continued to search for work.
By the end of the 30s, hundreds and thousands of farm families had moved to California and other Pacific Coast states.
In 1936, as travelers headed west and made their homes in various states, 19% of Los Angeles County's population was that of the Arkies and the Okies. Of the 3 million population, over 74% of these people marked Southern California as their final destination away from the Dust Bowl. However, many of these people were in search of manual labor, but it was a matter of who can get this labor.
The situation got so bad that the Los Angeles County Supervisor sponsored a plan to give county jobs to county residents only, and to demand that the state and federal governments care for indigent persons coming in from other states. The per capita cost was being greatly increased by the horde of newcomers that were still arriving.
The influx of migrants depressed wages, satisfying farm owners, But the Okies, unlike Hispanics, tended to stick around after the harvest. Because they arrived impoverished and because wages were low, many lived in filth and squalor in tents and shanty towns along the irrigation ditches.
Consequently, they were despised as Okies, a term of disdain, even hate, pinned on economically degraded farm laborers, no matter what state they were from. The California Citizens Association formed to find a solution to this Okie influx, and succeeded in extending the waiting period for California relief to 3 years.
The Federal Farm Security Administration provided several clean camps designed to be governed by the residents and to foster a sense of self-respect. But these were only models for state and private organizations, which were not prone to build any kind of residences.
Good boy. The powerful associated farmers, the growers, feared the Okies might unionize and demand better wages. The Community for Industrial Organization created the United Cannery Agriculture, Packing, and Allied Workers of America, which led a number of strikes in the fields. The migrants did not have very strong class consciousness. Many were demoralized and identified more with farm owners and laborers.
Southwestern migrants in Arizona also found life very difficult. As many as 37,000 migrants, lured by the growers' intense recruitment effort, entered the states from 1937 to 1938 to harvest a bumper cotton crop. The number of employees may have been twice as many as needed, some suspected to depress wages and hinder unionization. As the harvest came to an end and floods in the San Joaquin Valley forestalled the migrants' movement to California, tensions mounted. Arizona's 3-year residency requirement ruled out public assistance. In March 1938, pickers allied with the Yucapua and marched for food. When the FSA provided relief, the tension dissipated and many migrants moved on. Generally, all Arizonans did not welcome Okies. Their antipathy was not as strong as that of Californians.
Random definition rocks.
Austin, he's sleep talking.
Wanna go for a bike ride? During President Franklin D. Roosevelt's first 100 days in 1933, governmental programs designed to conserve soil and restore the ecological balance of the nation were implemented. Interior Secretary Harold L. Ikes established the Soil Erosion Service in August 1933. In 1935, it was transferred and reorganized under the Department of Agriculture and renamed the Soil Conservation Service. More recently, it has been renamed the National Resources Conservation Service.
In 1935, the federal government formed a drought relief service to coordinate relief activities. The DRS bought cattle in counties which were designated emergency areas. For $14 to $20 a head, animals unfit for human consumption were destroyed. The remaining cattle were given to the Federal Surplus Relief Corporation to be used in food distribution to families nationwide. Although it was difficult for farmers to give up their herds, the cattle slaughter program helped many of them avoid bankruptcy. The government cattle buying program was a godsend to many farmers, as they could not afford to keep their cattle, and the government paid a better price than they could obtain in local markets.
President Roosevelt ordered the Civilian Conservation Corps to plant a huge belt of more than 200 million trees from Canada to Texas to break the wind, hold water in the soil, and hold the soil itself in place. The administration also began to educate farmers on soil conservation and anti-erosion techniques, including crop rotation, strip farming, contour plowing, and terracing, and other improved farming practices. In 1937, the federal government began an aggressive campaign to encourage dust bowlers to adopt planting and plowing methods that conserve the soil. The government paid the reluctant farmers $1 an acre to practice one of the new methods. By 1938, the massive conservation effort had reduced the amount of glowing soil by 65%.
Okay.
After nearly a decade of dirt and dust, the drought was soon over with regular rainfall once again.
By the time the major drought concluded in the mid-1940s, the demographics and the political economy of the plains of the 100th region had fundamentally changed. The
The families who migrated experienced a permanent significant increase in their household incomes in the aftermath of the war in their new locations and settings as non-farm workers. This guaranteed that they had no desire to return to the harrowing poverty of their rural existence as it was, even before the Great Drought. Advances in agriculture, transportation, and agribusiness in the post-war period further contributed to the collapse in demand for the small-scale farming that had taken place in this region.
The crisis was documented by photographers, musicians, and authors. Many were hired by various U.S. federal agencies during the Great Depression. The Farm Security Administration hired numerous photographers to document the crisis. This helped the careers of many notable artists, including Dorothea Lange. She captured iconic images of the storms and migrants' families. The work of independent artists such as folk singer Woody Guthrie and American novelist John Steinbeck also was influenced by the crisis of the Dust Bowl and the Depression. Migrants leaving the Plains states took their music with them.
Disc 3 is our bonus features, bloopers, and the making of these DVDs, as are the other 17 discs. So for a wealth of information about the Dust Bowl, please call 951-294-927 *#, 305-846-013, 835 ##*000. Again, that number is impossible to repeat. Please buy our DVDs.
We're done, finally, with 17 hours, 45 minutes.
To spare?
To spare.
Wow.
Let's get pizza.
Pizza?
Pizza, yeah.
Let's go get pizza.